When the chaos of popular culture makes your brain hurt, you really need belief in the form of a transfusion of analysis and humor. It's time for a POPeration. Join hosts Eric and Stacey as they dissect popular culture one bloody organ at a time. It's just what the doctor ordered.
It's POPeration. I'm Eric.
I'm Stacey.
And happy Independence Day.
Yeah,
happy birthday, America.
Hashtag America.
So it is the July the 4th. It is a national holiday. And, there are a lot of ways we could have taken this show.
We totally could have. And in other years, perhaps we will.
We will. But one of the things that really struck me this year is I'm hoping that summer 2017 goes down in the history books as the summer of Wonder Woman.
Yay!
Big, huge hit.
Yep. I have not seen it yet, so we're going to talk about it, but it'll be
spoiler free. Yeah. But I'll definitely. I have had a chance to say. I'll tell you all the things I loved about it. But her red, blue, and gold eagle emblazoned outfit. There's even though she's not an American citizen, even though the movie
she
takes
is an
place
American hero
primarily in London, she's still she's
but
certainly
Wonder Woman and again we'll talk about this all through her career was helping America.
Yeah, she had the Star Spangled Shorts for most of it. She doesn't in this movie, but nonetheless, we thought that was a symbol enough of Americana that we are calling this episode Wonder Women, and we're talking about women who kick ass.
Yeah,
Wonder Woman, chief among them,
mostly,
but a whole bunch of other stuff too. So, Stacey, when you talk about action heroes in general, like forget the gender thing for a moment,
right?
What do you need to be a good? What do you need to carry an action movie? Like, who needs to be at the center of that thing?
Character-wise, you're talking about. I think it needs to be someone with a strength of character and ethics. I think a moral foundation.
Okay, so they're doing this they're not kicking ass for the sake of kicking ass. They're saving the world.
It has to be a higher calling than just I'm having fun beating people up.
Yeah.
I think fundamentally, there has to be a higher calling for you to be a hero.
Yep.
It has to be more than about yourself. A narcissist cannot be a hero. That's what I'm going to put that right out there.
On
Take
July
it as
the 4th.
you will.
Yes,
on July the 4th.
I know how I'm taking it, but I'm just going to leave it right there.
Because a narcissist is all about themselves.
Sure.
So I believe that a real hero, and we're talking about action heroes specifically, doesn't matter. A hero has to be about more than themselves.
Yep.
And I think there has to be a high moral and ethical level to them.
Yep.
And they have to have a strength of character and a self-awareness.
Sure. And I think, when you're talking about action sequences, whether you're talking about, hand-to-hand combat or sword play or car chases or whatever, it gets very physical. That's kind of what action movies are all about.
Correct.
I love it when an action hero is also a little smart.
Oh, no. I think smart and funny are important.
Oftentimes the super genius characteristics are given to the villains, right? So
Correct.
You're up against someone who's smarter than you, and that's the challenge, right? Because that's what makes you have to have a good villain to have a good hero.
True. That's true. And you say smarter than you, at least as smart as you.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want my hero to be an idiot.
No.
But strong. In physically.
And clever, but then up against a super genius.
Correct.
Right?
You want them to
Superman is smart, but Lex Luthor is smarter. And that's always the challenge. You got to figure out a way to outsmart this person.
See, I don't know that I agree with that. I don't think that Lex Luthor is smarter. And of course, here we are on Wonder Women talking about these men. But I do want to finish this up. I don't think that Lex Luthor is smarter than Superman. I think he's just evil. So he's using his smarts in a different way that never occurred to Superman to do.
And he's not bound by ethics. So
and he's not bound by ethics, and he is a narcissist. And so, I think that I think Superman's as smart as he is. And if Superman wanted to be evil, he could go down a road that we've never seen, or whatever. So I have to disagree that the villain is going to be smarter than the hero.
Okay. Well, we can agree to disagree on some of that. I think some of the time it is, though, like the only thing the villain's got going for him is that they're a genius.
Correct. And they're hoping that they won't. I mean,
so the action hero comes at them with a certain amount of intelligence. I like it. Again, I like it when my action heroes have a certain amount of intelligence, but they also bring some brawn.
Yes.
They're usually stronger, better able to chase that car through a downtown whatever, or beat somebody up, or scale a tall building in the middle of an elevator shaft, a la Die Hard, all that kind of stuff. So why do we like action movies so much?
I think it comes from the fact that we don't have to go out and kill our food anymore. I mean, okay, I get that that's making it really basic, but let's think about it.
Let's just reduce it to its most primal level. I think you have a point.
Because where is my challenge in my day-to-day? There are challenges, but are they physical challenges? I mean, aside from the traffic on the interstate, what are my challenges? Yeah. I'm not having to fight anything to get to lunch.
Sure.
I'm not having to...
Someone kills your lunch for you and brings it to you on a plate.
Oh my gosh. And it's awesome. And then they clean it up afterwards. But even if I'm going to cook my own food, I can go and have someone else deal with those parts that have eyes and feet. I just have to get the meaty part and then do what I want to do with it. But I guess my point is that our challenges in the day now are a little bit more sedentary.
Yeah.
And we're a sedentary society. And
unless you go choose to work out, and then you're just doing physical exercise for the sake of physical exercise.
And for health, and I get all that, but my whole, we don't have to. There's not, the stakes aren't so high that
but we're not trying to cross the desert or get our food.
So I think we enjoy, there is still that part of us that craves some of that action that we're not going to get now because we're, quote, civilized. Yeah. And so I think that we go to that. So it's fun to go to Galaxy, the Guardians of the Galaxy. And I mean, the stakes are really high there. My stakes aren't really high. You know what I mean? It's like the world, the universe is at stake. The existence of mankind is at stake there.
In a lot of these movies, yeah.
And then they're going to go, and I see this guy that I like or this gal that I like, and they're funny and they're entertaining and they're smart, okay? And then they are just punching the face in of the bad guy or their minions. And it feels, it's cathartic. It's cathartic, too.
Yeah.
I think there is that whole thing that I'm not having to fight to keep my children safe or put food on the table. I'm not having to battle big monsters for that.
Yeah.
But also, I did have to deal with my boss, and he may be a pain in the tail, but I can't punch him in the face. But Zoe Saldana will do it for me. Bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. When I thought about, why do we watch action movies? Why are they so important to us? The first, I think I agree with you absolutely, and I came at it from a slightly different angle, and just the word that came for me was escape. Right? It's just an escape from our daily drudgery lives, and somebody who's scaling a building and trapezing from one office ceiling to another in the middle. We've never done that, and it's fun to put ourselves in those shoes and also imagine ourselves being just that cool.
Yes, and I agree. I put it under the umbrella. Entertainment for me is escape for me anyway. So when I go to an action movie, you better take me somewhere else.
Yeah. And my dad always used to drive me crazy as a kid. It just made me insane. He would always profess a real preference for what he called mindless entertainment. He didn't want to have to think when he sat down to be entertained.
Correct.
And I come from it from a slightly different place. I appreciate it when a movie can challenge me. I like it when, or I can learn about something else,
Hidden Figures is a good example of that. It wasn't a documentary, but there were things about it that were true. There were parts, and one thing that jumps out at me is when they didn't have a colored bathroom.
Yeah.
Near
for Taraji to
where
use.
She was
so
where
she
was
had to walk
working
45 minutes to the bathroom.
Correct. And that's something it did never occur to me. I knew there was racism and I knew that she had been kept from, but you're like, that is a basic thing.
Yep.
Didn't ever think about it. Did it take away from the story? Did it take me out of the moment? No, it didn't at all.
Yeah.
But I did walk away. I had learned something.
Yeah, and you had a deeper appreciation for what these women...
I was still entertained.
Yeah.
I still had the escapism, but you're right. I think sometimes I do want mindless.
Yeah.
Okay? But sometimes I don't mind.
And I go to an action movie when I really need to escape. I find that when my life is either it's drudgery, it's boring, or I'm just kind of depressed. Like life is not going well. You know, a good action movie.
A lot of blood and gore can do that. Just
pumps up the adrenaline,
against
cleans
the wall,
out the gunk in the back of your brain.
And the bad guy is down. I do like me an HEA, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Satisfying.
I like a happy ending.
Really,
And so, yeah, I get that completely. I agree.
Good.
Totally.
Okay, so we're on the same page there. So now let's get into what we're talking about today is specifically women who kick ass, the female action hero.
Which is fairly new.
Yeah.
Modern-y. And by modern, I mean in the last 100 years.
Sure.
I mean, that sounds like it's a big number, but if you think about how long humankind has been around, the fact that it's only been in the last century that it's been okay for women to be action-packed and to be physical, to be violent, and it be okay. That's a very small amount as a percentage.
Yeah, and usually it's a role that we're a little bit more comfortable putting men in.
Correct.
This action hero
And again,
role.
it goes to the anthropology from back in the day.
And yet, when we came up with our list of like who we could have talked about in this episode, it's a long. I was surprised.
It is a long list, but and I was surprised too when I started looking up, and even from my own memory, I'm like, oh well, there was this one. Oh, ooh, her too. Oh, and you realize that. But again, it is mostly within my lifespan, if not a couple of decades before it. You know, it's still in the last 70, 80 years.
And as a big, and I came out around this during our third episode around Guilty Pleasures. I read a lot of comic books. Batgirl is my favorite, you know, so right there we're talking about the female action hero. Joss Whedon is making a movie about Batgirl, which I'm super excited about.
It should be good. I love him so much.
And, you know, and I read a lot of team books when I was younger. I liked the teams because I could only buy 3 a month, and so I wanted to get as many superheroes as I could get.
I get that.
So Justice League of America and Teen Titans and all those, and there was always at least 1 or 2 women in there. So when you're doing a team book, you're never going to have a team of just guys.
There was this big book. It was the origin stories. It was basically a compilation of all of the, I think it was DC characters' origin stories.
Okay.
And so basically it was a hardback coffee table book with the first comic of each of these I believe the Green Lantern was in there, and DC, and the swimming one, Aquaman, Batman, Superman.
Can I just say Aquaman looks kick-ass in the new Justice League movie? Just a little sidebar. Now we'll go back to our regularly scheduled program.
Okay, we will. Awesome. But what's his face? Momoa is he is a hottie. I know he is a hottie.
Well, and Aquaman usually looks so stupid. He looks bad.
Well, and he looks nothing like the origin story comic. I just want to throw that out. But also in here, so it was all of these, and it was all men. I'll be honest, except for Wonder Woman's origin story was in there. So that was that was the 40. I mean, again, this was during that. You talk about patriotism, and that's what we're, the whole point.
But I will throw in a little plug. This one is on topic. Batgirl Year 1 is a 9-book series. That is the origin story of Batgirl. It is awesome. Really good. Yes. So if you want to do a graphic novel, you can get it. Comixology is the app that I use to download comics digitally. Look for Batgirl Year 1. Okay. Super good. Cool. And I'm hoping that that's what Joss Whedon uses as the basis for his movie, because it sets up such a great story.
Well, yeah, and there is. I am very optimistic about it because I do have such an immense respect and regard for Joss Whedon and what he does, and we'll talk about him a little later.
We are.
Because he has an immense respect and regard for strong women.
Yes.
And he writes them really, really well.
Yeah.
So that's what's coming up. We're talking about all that stuff.
So we're going to talk about the best action characters in both movies and TV. Maybe step into the comics a little bit if we feel like it. And then we're going to, later on, talk about the best women who are bringing some of these actresses
Yeah.
who are bringing some of these characters to life, and who really excels in primarily the movies, but all over the place in those kinds of roles. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good.
So celebrate Independence Day in this way. So when we come back, our favorite action characters who happen to be female, women who kick ass.
Happy birthday, America. You're listening to a very special POPeration. Eric and Stacey will be right back.
Hello, and we are back. It's POPeration. I'm Stacey.
I'm Eric. Happy 4th of July.
It is. Happy Independence Day. And we're talking about strong, independent women.
Women who kick ass.
And so action heroes and the characters that we admire the most or have been fans of.
Yep.
Either now or in the past.
So we're going to start with television. I have to say my favorite female action star on TV right now is probably Supergirl on the CW.
Right. My daughter loves
Stronger than Superman, if you know the mythology.
Actually, no, my daughter doesn't.
Stronger than Superman. She lived on Krypton a little bit longer.
So that made her stronger.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so in the comics, when you read the comics, she can kick his butt. Even though she's smaller and she's in the body of a teenage girl, and he's a big, huge, grown, muscly man, she can knock him out.
That's awesome.
Which is interesting. Other great, action characters on TV that were women. Linda Carter as the original Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah, I watched that. I watched that when it was on live, and I enjoyed it. It wasn't. I enjoyed it. It was that 70s.
Yeah, it was campy. But it was fun.
But it was fun,
really
and it was
fun.
enjoyable. But yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, Jennifer Garner as Sydney Bristow on Alias.
That was huge when that was very popular, and I think it was surprisingly popular. And she did a really good job.
Yeah,
on that.
Sarah Walker from Chuck.
Yes, I'll tell you, of kick-ass women on TV, if you never watched Chuck, the series, that woman, she's awesome. I mean, she was awesome. It was a wonderful character, I think, and it was certainly great to see a female who had that bigger role.
Yeah.
She was the muscle.
And Chuck was kind of the damsel in distress.
He was always, except nearing the end, he evolved.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, he was total nerd. He couldn't walk across the street.
Yeah.
And she was the muscle, literally. And so that was very fun to kind of see that switch.
Yeah, that's awesome. Another comic adaptation, Maggie Greene from The Walking Dead.
Yes.
Great character. And then, not your favorite show, as we've discussed in the past, but in Game of Thrones, we have written down here Daenerys Targaryen and Arya Stark, and a lot of other women, though, too.
You could actually almost
kick-ass in that.
There are a lot of...
Brienne of Tarth is a big kick-ass woman in that show. Sansa's becoming... she was a damsel in distress for a while, but now she's not really an action hero, but she's becoming a leader. She's kind of helping her brother lead this army, and she gives a lot of the big going into battle speeches that are supposed to inspire them, and she's amazing.
Yeah. Doesn't Arya do a lot of the kicking and fighting and whatnot?
Well, no, Arya's kind of, she's this little lone assassin who's just kind of sneaking around killing people.
Seems to be action thing, though.
Yes. She's actually doing some killing as opposed to Sansa, but she doesn't do it in the context of an army. She's just got a list of people she wants to see dead.
Gotcha.
I don't think Arya's mentally well at the moment, but she's also been through a lot of shit, so that explains it. So there are some that we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth, and we're starting here
going back to my childhood,
going back to the 70s.
And I talked about Wonder Woman and said she was kind of camp. Okay, this character, it wasn't supposed to be camp, really. I mean, it was just an action TV show. That had a girl in front, and it was the Bionic Woman.
Yep.
Now, it was a spinoff of the
$6 Million Man.
$6 Million Man. And she was on for an episode or two, very popular. So she got her own show.
Yep.
And it was great. And it was even, in the title, the Bionic Woman. So if you didn't want to have your hero, action hero as a woman, don't watch. And she was awesome because the men around her were a lot of smart doctors or whatever.
Yeah.
She was the muscle.
Yeah.
And she was smart too.
She was smart. She had been through the same thing that Steve Austin had been through.
She could hear really, really well.
She had a bionic ear.
And she could run really, really fast and jump.
And also strength. I mean, I think there was a whole, she could throw a man across the room. Yeah. So she was, there was a reason why she could beat up all these dudes.
Correct.
Is that she had some,
But you put it into, when did it come out? 70s.
Yep.
Which was in a lot of the women's movement was going on.
Uh-huh.
And, okay, you did have Wonder Woman, who was strong, and she was an action hero, but she was also in a skimpy outfit. All right?
Yeah.
You had Charlie's Angels.
Yeah.
Enough said. Which was not the Drew Barrymore Charlie's Angels. It was a Charlie's Angels that made Farrah Fawcett a star.
That took itself a little bit more seriously than the movies did, but were still a little campy.
But it was very camp, and it was braless.
Yeah.
So, you see what I'm saying? It wasn't about women empowerment. I don't care what Kate Jackson says. It was what it was. TNA is what it was. And that's fine. Just be honest with what you are.
Sure.
Bionic Woman, she wore a bra.
Yep.
But it was not about her. There wasn't a sexualizing of. That wasn't what it was about.
Yeah.
It was about the mystery or whatever the problem was that week.
She felt like an action hero who just happened to be a woman,
exactly.
as opposed to jiggle, jiggle, bounce, bounce, punch,
exactly.
punch. Yeah.
Charlie's Angels, who actually, they had man boss.
Yeah.
Who they never saw. So it was really just,
and then even a man go-between, because Bosley was there,
correct.
And then Charlie was
so
there.
It was, it was anyway. I don't want to go down that road. But
hello, angels. Hello, Charlie.
I can't go down there in 2017. But Bionic Woman was a real role model.
Yeah.
That again, you don't want to go get yourself cut up so that you're bionic.
Exactly.
But the whole thing was she was a strong woman, and you're exactly right. It was basically the same stories in the $6 Million Man, but she was a girl.
Yeah.
And that was cool because you see that's how girls could watch it. And again, there wasn't this sexual thing a part of it.
And I have a feeling, I don't know, I don't have any stats in front of me, but I imagine a lot of men who enjoyed the $6 Million Man probably watched the Bionic Woman because if they liked that one, they'll like this one.
My dad loved it because it was the same. Again, it's the same plots.
And it didn't feel like it had so much of an agenda. It just was what it was.
It was what it was, and she happened
powerful.
To be a woman. And so basically, they were getting this. They had the same plots and writers and whatnot, but they had two shows, so they were getting double the advertisers.
Exactly.
So again, you have to understand it came about, and the time it came about in the 70s was important. And I think that it was a really good evolution.
So the next one that we're going to talk about, also a spinoff of something very similar that was kind of carried by a man, and then they kind of did a spin-off so the woman could. And I did not watch this show, although every lesbian I know simply loves and adores Xena Warrior Princess.
I will be honest with you. I watched it. I am not a lesbian, but I watched it because it was fun. And I watched Hercules too. Okay, so I watched both of them. What I watched it for, yes, she was kick-ass and her pal was kick-ass, and they had a fun relationship. Was it lesbian? Could have been. I don't know. Didn't care. I
think not having seen it, I can't really base this on real experience, but every lesbian I've ever talked to, the people who were behind that show knew how to get close to that line and get all the lesbians' hopes up.
Yeah.
Because there was so much Xena and Gabrielle fan fiction out there, and people kind of, they would get close enough and they'd say, I really care about you. And the lesbians would just fill in the rest with what they wished would happen.
Yeah, because there were always guys that were coming in and all of this. But I will tell you, that was a setup in that, because that's never really a plot that I would ever watch. But they had so many fun characters, and the writing was hysterical. It was a show that knew who it was. It knew what it was. As you said, it knew what its audience wanted.
Yep.
And it had fun. You felt like everybody from The Grip to Lucy Lawless was having a good time doing this.
Yeah.
But they were all winking at the camera going, look at me. I'm going to ride a unicorn. It was like whatever. They were having fun. So the audience had fun. And again, very witty dialogue, but very fun characters. And that's why I watched, as I said, Hercules and Xena. But it was definitely the fact that it was these two women, this buddy combination that normally, if there's a girl, you want to have a guy somewhere around because, but no, not at all. Very impressive. And again, I believe this was the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. So again, women are going a little bit further out, pushing out a little bit. So we have a show that it's not only female-led, but the buddy is female.
Yep.
And men only come in on the peripheral every once in a while. Maybe they're a villain, but there were a lot of women villains in there. Medusa.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed that one a lot. But it was also family friendly because, as you said, they would tease on things. But it was really made like those old serials that would be in front of the movies back, again, way before you and I were born.
Yep.
That our parents on Saturdays would take their nickel and go down to the theater and watch, you'd have a movie, but before that you'd have this
5 minutes of the Lone Ranger.
5 minutes of the Lone Ranger. And you'd go every week though, because it was a serial. That's the kind of feel it has. It was campy, but it knew it was campy and it did camp well.
Yeah.
But it was very strong. They were true to who the characters were, and it was strong women, and they did kick ass like nobody's business.
That's great. So we're going to wrap up our TV section with my favorite kick-ass woman ever on television, Buffy Summers from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And you hear the title Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and you're already like, what? And Joss Whedon totally did that on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
Chose the name Buffy and set it in Southern California. I did not see the movie, but I did read the comic book that Joss Whedon wrote that he said was the official prequel to the TV show.
Okay.
He didn't want you to think of the movie as the official prequel to the TV show. Rather, and it's very close. And I have not seen the film, but I understand.
I saw it in the theater.
They're very close. Okay.
I saw it in the theater. I have not read what you read, but I saw Buffy in the theater. With Christy Swanson.
Luke Perry.
Pee Wee Herman. What's his name?
Paul Rubens.
And Donald Sutherland. And Rutger Hauer was the villain.
Yes.
He was a little off his looks in Buffy, but he was still a good actor. I don't want everybody to think I'm that shallow. It was camp. Knew it was camp. Didn't quite hit the mark for popular everything.
Yeah.
I walked away saying that was a fun movie. It wasn't great, but it was fun.
And it was not a huge hit, which is why when it came on TV,
it didn't quite make it.
When it came to the TV, everyone's like, it's like, why are they bringing this to television? Because it wasn't a huge hit. And the reason they brought it was because Joss Whedon loved this character and he wanted another chance.
And he changed her enough. He was smart, and what he changed was perfect.
Yeah.
So I did watch because I liked the movie. I hadn't loved the movie, but I liked it. I certainly was going to give the series a try. But at the same time, I'll tell you, I was like, why are you making a series off of a non-hit?
Yeah. And so they repositioned her. They brought her out of LA into Sunnydale. Occasionally referenced all the trouble she'd been in her last school, which included burning the gymnasium down, which was a plot point of the movie and the comic origin story that I've read, but gave her a whole new set of supporting cast.
Yes.
So Luke Perry's character Pike was out.
Gone.
Her watcher in the movie, spoiler alert, dies. So she had a new watcher who is now in Sunnydale, California, suburb kind of in the middle of the Southern California, but not in the middle of LA, and sat on top of what was called the Hellmouth.
Yes.
So it was very important that she was positioned in Sunnydale because Sunnydale had more supernatural activity than any place on the planet. And if you've never seen Buffy, first of all, stream all 7 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer immediately.
It's amazing.
Because it is campy, it is silly, it is called Buffy. It does kind of mix up the teenage angst and the vampires, but because it's 7 seasons long, it allows itself to get serious. You talk about everybody involved.
It's brilliant. His writing on so many of them touched on problems and issues that teenagers were dealing with.
Yeah.
But he would deal with it, or he would in such a creative way.
Yeah.
There are some episodes that are literal brilliance, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's part of it, is that it's smart. You talk about smart.
Yes.
It's smartly written, but all the characters, Buffy, you hear the word Buffy and you think it's a dumb blonde.
Yep.
And in the movie, she was dumber than she is in the TV show.
Yeah.
And I think that's one change he made,
yeah,
which was a good change to make. But she's not dumb.
No.
She's just has, and basically,
and yet she's got room to grow, and she does grow.
And she does.
She
we watch
evolves
her grow
quite a
up.
bit.
We watch her go through high school, and she goes through a lot of trauma. But she is one who is strong, and she is learning how to use that strength. And she makes mistakes. She kills some people that she shouldn't, and she doesn't kill others that she should. There's a lot of death. Don't get me wrong. It's an action thing. But it was... I think I agree. She's the ultimate TV.
And while we're talking about kick-ass women on TV, and we're referencing Buffy, I can't let this go without also talking about Willow. So her friend Willow, played by Allison Hannigan, probably best known for the American Pie movies and How I Met Your Mother.
How I Met Your Mother.
She was Buffy's best friend, and starts off as cute little nerdy girl with the occasional...
She might be the first person that Buffy meets when she goes to high school. She's one of the on that first day.
Yeah, Xander and Willow were there the entire time.
Yeah.
And Xander and Willow were maybe going to be a couple, and then Willow found a girl that she was interested in, so there was a whole coming out thing. It was, she was
and that was historical as well.
Lesbian character as well.
That was historical as well.
So Willow started off as like cute little nerd girl, occasional witty aside while they were making plans, and Buffy was
a smart one. She would go online.
But then she started to dabble in witchcraft, and actually as the series progressed became more and more powerful, and it became pretty clear that not only was she interested in this, there was something about her. She had a real knack for this.
Correct.
So Buffy as a character was chosen. That was a big part of her character. She didn't have a choice of whether or not she was a vampire slayer. She was the vampire slayer. It was a role that, and it was a role that she didn't always want.
Correct.
But she had. And Willow was different in that she really took this on.
She did. She chose to go that route.
And then was also chosen in a sense that she had a real natural gift for all this
stuff. But I also think one reason that she went that way is that she wanted to be as strong as Buffy. They all looked up to Buffy and her strength.
Yeah.
And Willow wanted that, knowing she couldn't go, there's only one chosen vampire slayer, and physically she was never going to be able to go against Buffy. She found another avenue.
But ended up being able to do things that Buffy could not do.
Oh, no, she was extremely
she could cast
powerful.
A magic spell that was incredibly powerful in her own way. And it was so great to watch somebody like Allison Hannigan, who is not, we're gonna go through our list of like kick-ass action stars.
She's not on it.
And she's not somebody you would think, she doesn't really go, she doesn't fit in with the Charlize Theron, Scarlett Johansson
because it's not a
vibe.
physical. This was not a physical power.
And she was so silly at the beginning. It was so great to watch her evolve into somebody who truly was kick-ass in her own right. And, Anya was another great character. Joss Whedon really knows how to do women right in this whole genre.
And Eliza Dushku, was on there for Faith, was in there as another Slayer.
And then showed up as Angel, on Angel, the spinoff a little bit later on. Yeah, Joss has you could tell he has an affinity for kick-ass women, which is probably why, he also signed on to do Batgirl. That's the movie he wanted to do. And he knows how to write them,
which is why I'm optimistic about the show, because I feel like he will give it the credence.
As much as I want to see more women behind the camera, I do trust Joss Whedon to do it well.
I agree too.
Okay, so that's our rundown of kick-ass women on TV.
The characters. But, you've got to have a good actress. To play that character tonight, make it believable and to make it popular.
So when we come back, we're going to talk about some of our favorite characters in the movies on the big screen, and then we'll talk about some of the actresses that bring those folks to life. So when we come back, POPeration.
Eric and Stacey suit up to take on more of the greatest action girls here on POPeration.
Welcome back to POPeration. Happy 4th of July.
Yay, happy birthday to us.
I'm Eric.
I'm Stacey.
And we are talking today about women who kick ass. Wonder Women. And this all started because
and mostly
Woman,
physically is what we're talking about. We're talking about action.
Yes, who literally kick ass.
Who literally
kick ass. And this was all started by the great, huge, surprising, but wonderful success of the Wonder Woman film that came out earlier this summer. We're going to end this particular conversation with Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, but we're going to talk now about great action characters in the movies. So we've got a long list here of things we could talk about. Jennifer Lawrence in The Hunger Games as Katniss Everdeen.
Correct. And that's been a really good role model.
Yeah. The books were, it's interesting about The Hunger Games is that the books were like It was dystopian, sure, but they were like this kind of light, reading. When you actually saw when the movie came out, we're like, they're killing children. Like that, all of a sudden it became like, wow, this is. And there was something to me that's the power of film in a lot of ways.
I agree.
Is a lot of this stuff became more real, and therefore the stakes went up by a lot. I mean, they were already high in the book. They were the same stakes, but it just meant a lot more in the movie. Mrs. Smith, Angelina Jolie, in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, great, funny.
I love that movie. I absolutely love that movie.
Yeah. Also Angelina as Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. Very interesting. Sigourney Weaver, who we'll talk about before the show is over a lot, but as Ripley in the Alien. Celine in the Underworld movies as played by Kate Beckinsale.
Kate Beckinsale.
Who's gorgeous.
She is. And it's interesting because I can see she does those British parlor movies, the costume dramas as well. And when she first did Underworld, I was like, wait, who is doing it? I couldn't believe she was doing that.
I first noticed her in the Kenneth Branagh, Emma Thompson, Much Ado About Nothing.
Yes.
She was the young ingenue, and I thought, wow, she's lovely, and she's, she Shakespeare just rolls off her tongue like she was born with it, and that's amazing.
She's very small. I mean, she's very, not fragile, that's true, but she's very soft looking. So for her to be an action hero.
But at the same time, she's playing a vampire, so the porcelain skin and the raven hair worked very well. Yeah. Halle Berry as Storm in X-Men.
She's great in that. She's great in that character, and it's wonderful, to see some diversity in action heroes. Yep. But Haley, and she did also play Catwoman, and I'm just going to say that out the side of my mouth because it's an awful movie.
Did you see it?
I saw parts of it. I couldn't sit through the whole thing.
Didn't see
That's
it.
How bad it was.
Yeah, it's got such bad reviews. I never actually saw it.
But having said that, it wasn't because she's not a good action. She's a great action hero, and she's wonderful as Storm. Yeah.
And then finally, talking about diversity, a green action hero is Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy. Zoe Saldana, who we will talk about in much more detail before the show is over. So the ones that we're going to talk about, let's go ahead and take these chronologically as well. We're going to start with, and every time I talk about her, I still get sad, Carrie Fisher. As Princess Leia in the Star Wars.
Yeah, and I think, that it's
sad because she left us, and sad because she's not going to have a chance to play Leia in the final movie. That's like the worst part of this.
That really sucks. It was nice that they did get all of her filming done. Principal filming for this second one. And so we're going to get her, but it is very, I don't know what that does to the story. I don't know in the filmmaking for the third of that.
And I have a friend who was talking about, okay, so who's going to play Leia? Who would you cast? And I was like, nobody. They better not. They had best better not put another actress in those shoes.
Oh no, you better didn't.
Yeah, they just need to find a way to, sadly, it just kills me to say it, kill her off in between the two because you just can't.
No, you don't replace it. But Princess Leia, I think, is extremely important because, again, when did it come out? 70s.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's a very male-centric movie, okay?
We talked about Star Wars with our episode around the Bechdel test, which fails miserably because Leia doesn't talk to any other women ever.
She talks to men all the time because she's right there with them, fighting with them, just as strong, if not stronger. She's stronger at Luke than Luke in the first movie, in A New Hope. But that was what I think was very compelling for me as a little girl was, I had a crush on Harrison Ford. Okay, Han Solo was awesome, and he was so funny. But she met him like toe-to-toe, didn't back down from him at all.
Nope.
Was not afraid. She wasn't even afraid. She didn't back down from Darth Vader, for God's sake.
No.
This woman, and that
Vader,
was the strength.
only you would be so bold. I mean, it just, she just comes right out
I thought I smelled you holding his chain, holding his leash. But, I mean, that's the thing is that her strength was amazing and it was refreshing.
Yeah.
She wasn't the damsel in distress.
No.
Luke comes in and says, I'm here to save you. And she just kind of looks at him, really? You're a little short. You feel like, okay, that's great that he did get there and open the door for her. She probably would have found another way.
Yeah.
And that's the way I think it was good. As I said, I saw it as a little girl, and that was empowering.
Yeah.
So Princess Leia is very important.
Yeah, and when I think about Princess Leia in the context of today, I still, not to delve too far into politics, but why not? Is this T-shirt that I see a lot of women wearing, which is 1977 era Princess Leia with the pumpernickel bagels on the other side of her head, holding a big gun, and it says, "A woman's place is in the resistance."
Yep.
Right? And I have to remind people, like, Star Wars is a political statement. I mean, it's about, a small band of people resisting a fascist overlord,
It is.
and that's actually, that is what it is about. And so, not only in terms of, this, the action piece of it, that she kicks some ass, but she's also, as we said before, what makes a good action hero is her moral center.
Correct.
Is she could very easily, as a princess, just have fallen right in line and gained some power for herself in this fascist regime.
She also could have been the one giving all the orders and being safe. Out there on the...
Yeah, one of the evil generals who was just, but instead...
and having all... But she could have had minions do all this.
Yeah.
She was the one who went on, the reason she got caught in the first place, she didn't have to be on that ship.
Yep.
She could have had someone else do it because she was a princess, but she did it herself.
Yep.
Because she wasn't going to put anybody else doing what she can do as well. And I think, again, her calling was not to just herself.
Yep.
Her calling was to something greater than herself. And I think that again goes to what makes a good hero.
Yep.
But the strength of Princess Leia, and it's really interesting seeing it come back around. There was a couple of decades there in between when it came out and when, sci-fi wasn't as big, and it's now come back around. And here she is, just as huge.
And, we have to say, product of its time. She is there with the gold bikini strapped up to Jabba the Hutt.
Sure, that's in the early 80s. We had some backlash there,
And the other thing that always kind of bugged me is that, spoiler, she's Luke's twin sister. And doesn't have the same kind of powers. I'm like, where are her Jedi powers? She's like, she could do all that. It was
alluded to in some of the stories, but they never did anything to fruition with it. Yeah. But it was always alluded that there's one other. Yoda was always talking about, there's another one. If you sink in the sludge here, I got another guy in the pocket. And it was her.
I guess it turns out to be her. But that was never really explored. Even in the new movies, she can't close her eyes and make a plane fly.
The Force was never asked. I mean, it was in theory the Force was strong with her, but I guess maybe she never worked on it. Luke worked on it.
Yeah,
and she didn't.
Yeah, but that's
she
lame.
was busy ruling. I don't know. The Resistance.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know.
But
I'm trying to rationalize.
I know, but I always wanted to. I always felt like that was a failing of the whole story.
I was hoping that when you get to the next section, and again, everybody aged out.
Yeah.
Okay, but the next section, in theory, number 7, would have been, okay, how does she come into being equal to Luke? Well, we're not going to have that, obviously. As in, everybody aged out, and now they've died out.
And now at the beginning of this new last trilogy, there is a woman at the center of it, and the Force is stronger with her than with anybody, and she's the new Jedi, so that's awesome. Next up, Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. In the Avengers,
the whole
not just the Avengers. I mean, the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah. She's probably been in more of these movies, the Iron Man movies, the Captain America
even
movies.
If she's not one of, it's not an ensemble piece. She's in there on the side, helping in certain ways. I really like this character because she is a survivor. Clearly is a survivor. And I don't even know the backstory, okay? I only know from what I've seen in the movies.
Me either.
And so I think it's possible that there's this big, long backstory and people are going, oh, yeah, she did this and this and this. That's great and awesome. I know from the movies that she definitely is a survivor. The fact that she is who she is, doing what she's doing, you're like, how do you get there? You're this pretty little girl, and yet you can kill, that first scene in the first Avengers, where we first meet her, and she's tied up and getting interrogated.
Yep.
But then when her boss calls and says, we need you to come, she's like, I'm in the middle of something. And then finally she just shakes off her shackles, and you're like, she could have done it the whole time.
Yeah.
But she was choosing her strategy.
Yeah.
But you're like, how do you learn how to do that?
Well, and what I loved about that is that when she came on, of course, my kind of feminist self kind of broke out of the movie for a second going, of course you've got the girl tied up and helpless. And then to find out that she wasn't.
Correct.
And she never was.
Exactly.
Yay! Thank you, Joss Whedon, yet again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And so that's my thing about that character. Do I think there needs to be more? Yes, I do. Do I think she needs her own movie? Yes, I do.
Absolutely.
But I think that I'm very, very happy that they have at least included a woman, and that character is fascinating because she does have a very dark side.
Yes.
So there are those, again, there are the characters that it really is. I mean, Wonder Woman is good all the time. I mean, that's who she is. Supergirl as well. Always really high motives for things. Black Widow, I think, sometimes is straddling the line.
Yeah.
And a part of it because of where she came from.
Yeah.
At the same time, when she does these heroic things, it is for the greater good. It is not for herself. Yeah. But again, I think it's an awesome character, and I love watching her.
So quick side note about Supergirl. In the comic books, not the TV show, Supergirl's got quite a dark side as well. In this brand new iteration, she's not sure she wants to be a hero.
Okay.
She comes to Earth, and she's a teenager, but she was a teenager when she left, so she's been in suspended animation. She has memories of Krypton. She's not fond of the fact that her entire planet was killed, and she's not sure if she wants to be a hero for this new planet. Who are these people? Do they even like us? And Clark is doing his best to try to say, but this is what we came here to do. And she's like, this is what you came here to do. Correct. I'm not so sure I want to do this. And so she does have a little bit of...
That's good. And I think sometimes in the 21st century, we do need to have that edge. It's hard to have a 100%. When Captain America was created, but again, it was this patriotic propaganda, and he was all for the United States, all good, all the time. And I think that now in the 21st century, we all know that we're all, everybody's aware that everybody has all these different facets of themselves. So it's hard to have a pure 100%. And the Captain America that is in the Avengers right now, they have given him a few edges, but he'd still... And again, I think being true to the character, they had to keep him as clean as they do. Yeah. But he does have a temper, and that's, I think, where they're giving him a little bit of his edge. But no, I think that's awesome about Supergirl, to have a little bit of edge. I think, again, it's 21st century.
And the fact that she can kick his ass is also interesting. So we're going to wrap up this segment with Wonder Woman. So great. Stacey, you have to see this movie.
It's on my agenda. I just got to get the time.
First of all, we talk a lot about choosing the performer. Gal Gadot, don't know where she came from. Israel is the answer, but but in terms of don't know what she's done before. Never seen her on screen before, to my knowledge. She's perfect for this role.
She looks great.
And I
liked her in the
Batman v Superman. Yeah,
I liked her.
She was the best thing in that whole movie.
She, honestly,
absolutely
really
the best thing in the whole movie. And so this movie picks up a little bit where that one left off. So it picks up present day, and then it takes us back to her origins. And so the entire thing is a flashback to where she kind of left Themyscira, the island, which is referred to once as Paradise Island. Little nod to the TV show. And they really played her. There's been a lot of what I've read about this says that probably a big template for this movie was Christopher Reeve as Superman.
Okay.
And because it's very much a fish out of water kind of story. She comes from a place where she's a princess. She carries around with her a sword or a spear, and that's what she does. And you just don't do that in 1918 London. So she kind of sticks out.
No.
And so there's a lot of comedy that comes from the fact that she just doesn't know. She's lived her entire life basically in this island that was, stunted in time from the ancient Greek days.
Right.
And yet they explain the language thing. Every Amazon knows hundreds of languages, so she speaks them all. Okay. So she can talk to anyone. And she's been alive for thousands of years.
Okay.
So she's accumulated all this knowledge. And she's just so earnest. I mean, she's earnest, but it's not corny. It's not campy like the TV show was. It's very much she kicks ass.
Yeah.
But it's also not as dark as a lot of the DC movies have been up to that point, which is why she was the best thing in Batman v Superman.
Yeah.
And yet I noticed in the credits, Zack Snyder, who gets a lot of the blame for DC, he wrote the story for this. And somebody else wrote the screenplay, and then Patty Jenkins directed. By the way, biggest domestic opening for a woman director in history.
I think that's awesome.
beat the $100 million mark before Sunday's grosses were even over in that opening weekend.
That's amazing.
So we got a woman director with a woman lead, broke $100 million in the first weekend. So hopefully that opens some doors.
Yep.
So mostly it's about Gal Gadot. The storyline is great. The storyline doesn't have so the happy ending that you crave. Spoilers: she beats the bad guy.
Yep.
But there is,
I believe we won World War I too.
We did.
If I recall.
We did. Yeah. So yeah, that's in there. But there is some cost to this. So there is a sense of it's not a completely happy ending.
Right.
There is a moment of real somebody in the movie doesn't make it.
Right.
And I won't tell you who, but it is a real moment. And so it's not stupid about just she goes in there and kicks ass and makes everything better. Like the war does cost her something.
Right.
And that's very cool. The other thing I really liked about it is it spends enough time on the island where she grew up, and you see how the Amazons trained. And so for the beginning of this movie, there's this great scene where the bad guys from World War I do breach the barrier between the island and the rest of the world, and all of a sudden these Amazons are fighting all these men, but they've never prepared to fight gunfire. And so they don't do as well as you think because they're all on bows and arrows.
But they do have those bracelets, but again, we're going to get into the weeds with this.
But again, they've never trained how to deflect bullets with bracelets. Like Wonder Woman has to learn how to do that.
Okay.
And the other thing that's interesting, as I say this, I don't think they ever use the words Wonder Woman in the movie ever. She's just Diana.
Right.
So the world has not given her a name yet.
Yeah.
And even in the comics, even in the canon, the world called her Wonder Woman. She just called herself Diana, and then she was just this person.
Right.
And there's a little bit, and she doesn't have the secret identity shtick is not all that important here.
Okay.
At one point, she puts on a pair of glasses, and somebody does pass her off as Diana Prince. Again, a little bit of a nod to the old TV show, but she never takes that on as a real disguise. She's just more interested in walking around in armor with her sword and kicking ass and saving the world. But it's a really smart, intelligent, and I have to say, Chris Pine is amazing.
I love Chris Pine. I've loved Chris Pine in virtually everything he's ever done. So I'm happy that he is a part of this, and I'm happy that he's good in it.
So fun little moment is they give him a piece of real male physical objectification to kind of turn the tables a little bit. There's an extended
if you're going to do that,
scene.
Chris Pine is a lovely one to do.
Yes. There's an extended scene where they're healing him in the Amazonian hot springs, and he's wearing nothing and having this long conversation with Diana, who's just ogling him a little bit, and he's being ogled, and that was it was fun for me. The other thing is that because she's so earnest, he gets all the snark. So all the clever, slightly sarcastic stuff that you need to have to balance a character like that, they went ahead and they gave it to him.
Right.
So that she could be really true to who Wonder Woman is, and yet the movie is not all that. The movie's got a real nice energy in terms of...
Well, I think that this is, again, another way that, and sometimes in our episodes you're going to hear both Eric and I are feminists and proud of it. And I like that, it's 2017. It's about bloody time.
Yeah.
That we had this kind of a movie come out. And that it proved itself. And I was so concerned. I was very scared about this movie coming out because I thought if it sucks, then it's going to push us back years before they'll let another woman, be the lead. It would be like, okay, now Black Widow's never going to get her movie.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So this is very hopeful and
So
optimistic.
first the reviews came out, and the reviews were amazing.
Yes.
But then I thought, now it's going to suck even worse if nobody goes.
Correct, because reviewers do not fill the seats.
No. And it would have been highly possible for this movie to get great reviews and for no one to come.
Correct.
So the fact that it got great views and people showed up, and God, it's a really good movie. I'm going to see it again.
But I think that's what we need, and but it's fun that even now we're creating these more and more of these kick-ass women.
Yep.
And I guess we should probably take a little break and come back and talk about the actresses who portray these kick-ass women and why that's important.
So we'll talk about some of our favorite actresses in this particular genre, and quick diagnosis, and we'll be done. POPeration.
Coming up, Eric and Stacey will bring you your final diagnosis about all things action girls here on POPeration.
We are back. This is POPeration. I'm Eric.
I'm Stacey, and we are talking about women who kick ass, action heroes, basically. And we've talked about the characters. that we liked, favorites, TV, movies, whatever. But as we've talked about in other episodes, when we're talking about characterizations, it is very important what actors portray.
Yep.
And I think that, there are a lot of action hero movies out there, but some haven't been as successful as others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes it's because you haven't had a charismatic enough actor with enough presence to either make it believable or to make it entertaining, and certainly to make it a hit.
So there are some women who, when you find out they're in an action movie, you just know you're in good hands. You know, they put your mind at ease right away.
And you know that it's going to be a good characterization, and they are indeed going to kick the ass that they have promised in the commercial.
To kick. So one of them, Charlize Theron, in the Mad Max movie, that was her movie, by the way. They called it Mad Max Fury Road, but it was about her. Furiosa was the name of that character, and she was fantastic.
Yeah, just overall, Charlize is amazing, and she is another one. She's one of those who is a chameleon, and can go from one extreme to the other.
Won an Academy Award doing Monster, can do her thing.
And then she's in that, has that perfume commercial as well. So Charlize can do it all, but she's very kick-ass.
Yeah, Scarlett Johansson, who we've talked about Black Widow already a lot.
But she also, that's kind of where she's going. Like she did Ghost in the Shell, Lucy. Now, some of these are not, they weren't necessarily hits. They also weren't necessarily critically acclaimed. No. But she's still kicking ass in them.
And Ghost in the Shell, controversial for a whole other thing of, and we might talk about, transracial casting as another kind of controversy later on. But given who, I bet she was good.
Yeah,
I bet she was as good as she could have been.
She's definitely a good action hero.
Mila Jovovich.
She's funny because I'm not a big fan of hers. She did, fun fact, she did the Blue Lagoon sequel.
Right.
Yeah. That may have been the first one she did. And that sucked like a mamma jamma. I just want to throw that out there. Not that I liked Blue Lagoon either. Sorry, Brooke. Like you, don't like the movie. But anyway, that's where she came from. That's where Mila came from.
Yep.
And she's not a good actress, okay? Beautiful. She was a model. She was beautiful. And apparently, according to you, she
cut an album. And I owned it. And she actually had one hit.
She did.
She had one hit.
And nobody knew you were gay.
Of that album. Well. But
you owned a Mila Jovovich.
Well, it was just Mila.
Album.
Mila was her.
Sure.
She went to the one name, the Cher Madonna, way of the path. She was Bjork-ish without the accent. So it was interesting. So when she showed up in The Fifth Element looking kind of weird, I was not surprised because I'd heard her music and she's already kind of
and what she did with it, I don't know if that was the first one, but that was certainly around that time because she was still young. She found these weird B or C movie genre of action heroes and Resident Evil.
Yeah.
And did all 112
And she's probably the
episodes.
one person on our entire list she's just an action star.
Yeah, at this point she is. Although, I think, wasn't she just in it wasn't Woody Allen, but some movies she's in.
Oh, really?
Yes. Maybe it's the new, I'll have to look it up.
Okay.
But she is in I think she's in a movie, you know what it is? It's Kenneth Branagh's Agatha Christie, Murder on the Orient Express.
Really?
Yes. So she's trying her luck at acting again. We'll see how that goes.
Kate Beckinsale, who we've already mentioned as Celine in the Underworld, great. Michelle Rodriguez, who I'm mad at her right now. Well, she did this movie, and I don't even think I think it was so controversial they actually shelved it. But they did we just did an episode on transgender.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk about this one at all because I don't think it was ever released. But she plays a woman who was assigned male at birth and still is a man. She's not really, you can't really call her a trans woman, but she was given sex reassignment surgery against her will, and now she's out for revenge. And of course, she looks like Michelle Rodriguez.
I think it was out for a minute. I think it was out for a minute. But yeah, she's the Fast and Furious, though. She's been all of those. And she really is kick-ass. Yeah. That woman is hardcore. She can beat you up.
Yeah.
And she's awesome at it.
And I believe it. Uma Thurman.
Yeah.
Great.
Kill Bill.
Kill Bill, Poison Ivy, Pulp Fiction. She didn't really kick a lot of ass in Pulp Fiction. She was more the mall.
No, she didn't, but it was violent.
But Emma Peel, that Avengers with Ray Fiennes. But Kill Bill, oh my God, I love those movies.
Yeah.
I really do. I love it when a filmmaker like Tarantino can create this whole mythology. And it wasn't just her. Who knew Daryl Hannah could kick ass?
No,
that was
he
weird.
really, yeah, exactly. And it was good. It was good for her career too. But yeah, no, Uma Thurman for sure. And one thing that we mentioned, Emma Peel in the Avengers, which is not the comic Avengers, but the British
TV show
Avengers. Diana Rigg on TV, that probably should have been brought up as well.
Probably.
Because she was awesome.
And also, interestingly, kicking ass as an 80-year-old grandmother on Game of Thrones right now.
There you go. So maybe Diana is in this. Diana Rigg runs the gamut from, but she started back in the 60s, and she was the muscle in the Avengers. It was she and John Steed, Emma Peel, Mrs. Peel. He always called her Mrs. Peel, and she was the muscle to his brains. She was the brawn, and she was amazing in her black catsuit. But she was also hot. I wonder why it was a hit. I just don't know why my dad liked it.
A million teenage fantasies. So let's get into a little conversation about some of these actresses. We're going to start someone we mentioned as a green character before, but has also done a lot of other things. Well, she was also a blue character in Avatar.
Yeah, she's done a lot of,
and actually herself, a little bit more herself in Star Trek.
Colors of the Rainbow.
But Zoe Saldana, who's done
I love
quite
her
a
so
few.
much.
Yeah. A lot of great stuff.
And she's wonderful. She's a great action star. She lends a warmth and a realness to her characters. I really love her because she's also in Star Trek. She's a Uhura, and which is not as kick-ass as Galaxies and Avatar were. But she's just wonderful. I just like watching her. She just seems very. You could get to know her, even as Gamora. This green thing, you're just like, I could have a drink with her. I don't know what color it would be. I don't know what planet it would be from, but I could have that color. I could have that drink with her.
Another one on our list is Sigourney Weaver, who just has to be mentioned. I mean, we talked a lot about Sigourney and the whole Ripley story in our sequels episode a while back. And it's interesting that, in Alien, the first movie, you started that movie. First of all, it was not billed as Sigourney Weaver in Alien. It was very much billed as an ensemble thing. And of course, half the ensemble died in the first half of the movie. And Ripley was left to kind of save the day. And no one walked into that movie thinking that we're going to experience some feminist action thing.
No, that character was written for a man. And I don't remember the story of how it got to be a woman. But at the end, they said, well, let's put Sigourney in there. And therein lies the whole
But then
beginning.
When Aliens came around, it was Ripley, and it was Sigourney Weaver above the title in Aliens, and you knew that before you walked in, and it was a monster
hit.
It was
huge.
a monster hit, and as we talked about in the sequels, podcast. A lot of female energy in that movie. I mean, the villain was, you knew that at that point that the monster was a female because you knew that it was also a mother. And then she had this little girl that she was protecting. And so, the object of her valor was also a woman. And again,
it comes down to when we talk about, the Wonder Woman and all the female strength there is that it's impressive. And again, this was the 80s. And so, again, there is this this female strength and power is coming to its own. Yeah. And I think that was a part of it. I think it was awesome.
Yeah. Somebody else on our list was Lucy Liu from the new Charlie's Angels sequence, but also very much highlighted in Kill Bill Volume 1.
Yep.
Had the big final fight scene to kind of end all fight scenes with samurai swords in a snowy Japanese garden.
She's great, and I feel like she's very understated. That's kind of how she plays. She's understated. She's not this over the top. She can be sitting there looking at you, and you see nothing, and then suddenly you realize my throat was cut. And I didn't even see her move. Yep. She's just very she's a fun action hero for me because of that subtlety.
And she can play it both ways. I mean, Charlie's Angels, she got to be kind of her snarky
She was snarky, but she was still. It was still a very sleek. I find her being a very sleek.
Sure,
her moves are very sleek.
Yeah. Well, and of course, she came on the scene in Ally McBeal. That's how we all got to know her.
Correct.
And she was very snarky. And
yes,
kind
she's
of
very
mean,
strong, but she wasn't action.
Strong. Yeah. But then Charlie's Angels came around, and then Kill Bill. Just well, of course, her and Vivica Fox and Daryl Hannah and Uma Thurman in that film. They all just
amazing,
kicked so much ass. So yeah, she's great. And then finally, I probably my favorite female action actress. If I see her name above the title of an action movie, I know I'm in really good hands.
It's going to be wall-to-wall action.
Yep.
You do know that.
And that is Angelina Jolie.
Here's my thing. I don't want to have a drink with her. I don't. In person. I just don't. She might be fine, but I don't. But on screen, I will almost watch her do anything because her presence on screen is wonderful and charming. And as an action person, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, it may be a perfect movie. She is wonderful in it.
Yeah.
But she is, but she has proven time and time again. Tomb Raider, Lara Croft, Salt. She is really good at that action stuff. Her timing is good. I think she makes really good choices as not only choosing the film she's doing, but in the moment she makes really good choices. We talked about really good actors and actresses that shouldn't really have to say a whole lot. You should be able to see, especially on movies because of how big the screen is, you should be able to see the emotions that go across her face. You can see what Angelina Jolie is thinking.
Yes.
Just watching her face.
Unless she doesn't want you to. Unless she wants to be enigmatic. Correct. And she can do that too. And it always seems really real.
I think she is brilliant. And I think that that's important to an action hero, male or female, to make them realistic, to make them likable. And to make them, most importantly, believable. Yeah.
Well, as an actor who always kind of, focused most of when I was thinking about doing this for the rest of my life, most of my work was on stage, did a lot of musicals, and they always say about musicals that the song should actually propel the story. If you stop the story to have a song, that's the mark of a bad musical. And I feel like fight sequences in action movies are kind of the same thing. They need to further the story along, and you need to constantly be like, this could make or break something, and you need to really feel like the hero's life is actually in danger because that will change the scope of the story. The stakes need to be high and there needs to be a reason for it. So therefore, you need a good actor in there. Yes. And oftentimes there's not a lot of dialogue. So to your point, all that stuff has to be legible. And Angelina Jolie does a whole lot else besides action movies, although it's interesting that she's known primarily in a lot of ways for these kinds of roles because she's always strong. She is always strong, and so action is a nice genre. No, I think she's great. And I agree with you. I think she's one of my favorites, certainly on the big screen. Yeah. For that. So, final diagnosis around women who kick ass. Stacey. I think that it's about bloody time. That films like Wonder Woman and the up and coming Supergirl and Batgirl are being lauded, but also they're actually popular. Yeah. I think what it does is it says something about society. Society is more accepting and they're ready for it and they believe it. Yeah. And I think that then transfers into real life where you then say, and I give my wife or my sister or my mother or my friend who's female, I understand that she is just as capable as any man. So I think that I think it's good to see it on the big screen because I think that helps in. Yeah. I think my final take on this, I prefer them to the men. I do. And part of it might be, I'm fully, I can admit a lot of it might have to do with the fact the gay thing, it's the diva energy that I like it when you don't have to be super butch and you can still be strong. Yes. And that message, true. I think, resonates, as you say, for girls. I think it's really important for young girls to see family friendly, obviously entertainment that features kick-ass women because it gives them something to aspire to. And and being heroic, whether or not that means, fisticuffs or sword fighting or whatever, just the idea that a woman can be a hero is really important. But, speaking for the gay boys out there as well, I think it's also something that's really empowering for me, oddly enough, because I don't really identify with Bruce Willis in Die Hard. Right. That's not who I am. But if I see, Uma Thurman in Kill Bill rocking a yellow tracksuit, it's a little, it just shows me that I don't have to be butch and I don't have to fit all of those characteristics of masculinity, but I can kick ass, and so there's something interesting there too. And I just, and even for your young, we keep on saying, it's important for girls to see this. I think it's important for boys to see this too. No, it is. And I think that's what I love about the exciting of it being popular. Yeah. It means it can't just be girls seeing it. Yeah. It's guys and boys seeing it as well. And now that's who I'm saying is accepting of, you've got Black Widow or Wonder Woman who can kick men's ass
up there, so maybe I can give a little bit more equality to those.
And
that
you know
I'm
what? The
with in
female
real life.
dollar could be primarily responsible for last month when Wonder Woman had such a great
Maybe.
opening weekend. Maybe. I really hope that a whole bunch of people went to go see that movie because they heard it was really good.
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
Period. They heard it was just really good, and it just happened to be Wonder Woman, you know.
Yep.
And it's this character that we've loved for 75 years.
But I just think that, you know, trying to pull everything down to, you know, equality for all, because this is hashtag America.
Yep.
And it's our birthday.
So on that note, happy 4th of July, everyone.
Yeah.
Don't forget to rate and review us and hit the subscribe button. We will see you next week here on POPeration. I'm Eric.
I'm Stacey. Use sunscreen. Happy birthday!
Bye.
You've been listening to POPeration with Eric and Stacey. Check out our website at poperationroom.com for links to our blog and other extras. Don't forget to subscribe to POPeration via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, and other podcast locations. You can also follow at POPeration Room on Facebook and Twitter. From all of us here at POPeration, we wish you a safe and happy Independence Day.